On the 23rd of March, the Ever Given, a cargo ship, ran aground on the Suez Canal.
Are being diverted after
shipping routes, and it's blocked.
A ship ran aground blocking the canal.
While the canal may be more than 8,000 kilometers away from Singapore, a blockage on one of the busiest trade routes in the world is definitely going to affect us. So let's dive deeper into this conundrum and understand what is really happening there. Yes, history. We have to start somewhere in this story, and I think the construction of the Suez Canal is a good place to start. As seafaring exploration, maritime trade, and colonial expansion grew in the 18th and 19th century, people began to wonder if there was a faster way to get between Europe and Asia. And the answer is yes. But before we get there, let me tell you a teeny bit about traveling between Europe and Asia. Back then, the only way to get between both places was past the Cape of Good Hope at the southern tip of the African continent. People found this to be a lengthy journey, perhaps even a dangerous one, and so began to think whether there was a faster way to get between Europe and Asia. And so, beginning in the mid-19th century, this company,
Universelle du Canal Maritime de Suez,
led by this man,
Ferdinand de Lesseps,
began planning to construct a canal in the Isthmus of Suez in Egypt that would link the Mediterranean Sea and the Red Sea. The Suez Canal was constructed over 10 years between 1859 and 1869. The Suez Canal shortens the present-day travelling distance significantly. For example, if you were to travel between London and Singapore via a container ship travelling at 16 knots, say if you were to go through the Cape of Good Hope, it would take you 11,700 nautical miles, give or take, which is about 30.5 days. However, if you were to go through the Suez Canal, that would take you about 8,300 nautical miles, or about 21.5 days. So that's a difference of about 3,400 nautical miles, or 9 days, which is a lot when it comes to trade where everything has to be fast. And so even though the Suez Canal wasn't an instant hit after its inauguration back in the 19th century, today it is one of the busiest trade routes in the world. On the 23rd of March, as the Ever Given was passing through the Suez Canal while on its way to Rotterdam from Shenzhen, a strong wind hit, pushing the ship off course and leaving the 400-meter ship stuck on the canal, which is only 200 meters wide. It took a week before the ship was freed and for the canal to resume its operations. And so this is how they freed the ship. A group of tugs were put in place on both sides of the ship in a bid to pull the ship back onto the water. At the same time, mud and soil were excavated from underneath the bow of the ship to allow water to rush in. Lastly, a key factor in this operation was the spring tide, which is basically a high tide that's unusually high. This allowed the ship to partially float and eventually be put onto the correct position. Prior to the Ever Given being freed, ships around the area only had two options: either to wait by the Suez Canal or to travel past the Cape of Good Hope to their destination. At one point in time, there were at least 369 ships waiting by the Suez Canal, and at least 2 dozens that decided to go past the Cape of Good Hope. This definitely created a lot of disruptions to seaborne trade. Now, let's put things into perspective. The Suez Canal handles 10% of global seaborne trade, and it is estimated that during the blockage, about $400 million worth of trade was disrupted every hour. Moreover, the global economy isn't faring that well either. For some context, firstly, there is a global shortage of containers right now. As the pandemic worsened last year, many of the containers that left China did not return as countries began to close down their borders or went into different forms of lockdown or quarantine. This means that currently, there are many containers that aren't located at where they should be, and China is facing a serious shortage of them. The fact that China has recovered, well, more or less, while many countries have yet to, means that a lot of these containers aren't returning back to China anytime soon. This has driven up shipping prices significantly. There is also a global shortage of semiconductors currently due to the increasing popularity of cryptocurrency and the unexpected increase in the demand for home appliances that use semiconductors during the pandemic. These come alongside a better than expected recovery in the market for cars late last year after a sharp decline in the first 2 quarters of 2020. As a result, the lead time for semiconductors has increased significantly as semiconductor manufacturers struggle to meet the demand of the growing markets. Shipping restrictions, such as countries preventing or restricting ships that have visited other ports from entering their countries, have also further limited global trade and hence worsening the situation. So all in all, it is evident that the pandemic had put a strain on the global economy and supply chain, and the blockage along the Suez Canal will definitely worsen it. However, with regards to the Suez Canal blockage only, for the average Singaporean consumer, there's actually nothing much to worry about because we do most of our trade with countries in Asia and Australia. However, eventually we may find that prices of certain goods might increase as manufacturers might find that it's harder to get certain raw materials, increasing their cost of production, and then it will be up to retailers whether they want to increase the prices or not. This is subjective and nothing is definite. And this is why I find this very interesting, as the Suez Canal alone has the ability to affect the global economy, and even though it's more than 8,000 kilometers away from Singapore, it still can impact us adversely. And this is how interconnected the global economy is. And taking into account the state of the economy right now, I think it is really important that we take that into consideration when we're trying to analyze it.